Bylaws of Hand-in-Hand Association. Preamble. He following bylaws shall be subject to and governed by the Nonprofit Corporation Act of Virginia and the Articles of Association of Hand-in-Hand. In the event of a direct conflict between the herein contained provisions of these bylaws and the mandatory provisions of the Nonprofit Corporation Act of Virginia, said Nonprofit Corporation Act shall be the prevailing controlling law. In the event of a direct conflict between the provisions of these bylaws and the Articles of Incorporation of Association, it shall then be these bylaws which shall be controlling. Article 1. Name. The legal name of the nonprofit association is Hand in Hand. Article 2. Purpose. The purpose for which Hand in Hand is formed is set forth in the attached Articles of Incorporation. The association is established within the meaning of IRS Publication 557, Section 5013, Organization of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, as amended, the Code, or the corresponding section of any further federal tax code. Article 2, Purpose, Part 2. The association shall be operated exclusively for our mission is to serve as a catalyst for positive change within the Mauritanian community in Northern America. Through advocacy, support, and collaboration, we aim to address the unique needs and challenges faced by individuals and families of Mauritanian heritage. We strive to foster a sense of belonging, celebrate cultural diversity, and promote social cohesion within the community by providing educational resources, empowering leadership development, and facilitating access to essential services. Article 2, Purpose, Part 3. We aspire to build a resilient and prosperous Mauritanian diaspora that contributes to the cultural fabric and advancement of North American society as a whole. In addition, this association has been formed for the purpose of performing all things incidental to or appropriate in the foregoing specific and primary purposes. However, the association shall not engage in any activity or the exercise of any powers which are not in furtherance of its primary nonprofit purpose. The association shall hold and may exercise all such powers as may be conferred upon any nonprofit organization by the laws of the state of Virginia and as may be necessary or expedient for the administration of the affairs and the attainment of the purposes of association. At no time and in no event shall the association participate in activities which have not been permitted to be carried out by a corporation/organization exempt under Section SU1C of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, the Code, such as certain political and legislative activities. Article 3, Headquarters. There is a headquarters for the Hand in Hand Association in the city to be determined in the state of Virginia, and the association is entitled to open subsidiary headquarters as needed by decision of the Executive Office. The Executive Office must notify the relevant authorities of any changes in the main headquarters as required by law. Article 4, Financial Resources of the Organization. Hand in Hand Association obtains funding through the payment of nominal fees by its members as well as through the collection of donations and grants provided by those who believe in humanitarian and charitable work within the framework of management, law of organizations, and the state of Virginia, whether these sources are individuals, families, organizations, or governments. Receiving, recording, and depositing all financial resources is the exclusive responsibility of the finance officer and their assistants. The Executive Office is responsible for expenditure within the organization. Article 5, General Assembly. Assembly conceded with the Hand in Hand Association, and it holds a regular meeting at each renewal of the Executive Office or the Board of Trustees office. All members have the right to vote to renew one of the two offices under the supervision of the other office whose term has not yet expired. The body that approves law and amendments. Article 6, Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is the highest authority of the Hand in Hand Association, consisting of 9 to 11 members. They are elected by the organization's General Assembly for the same term as the Executive Office, 2 years. Article 6, Board of Trustees continued. The task of this board is to oversee the financial and administrative management of the association and to take necessary actions in the event of any legal violations, whether by the organization's president or the executive office. The current Board of Trustees overseeing the drafting of the association's laws continues until the end of the first legal period, which begins from the first regular conference. The Board of Trustees meets every 2 or 3 months to discuss the general situation of the association. They also call for an emergency meeting if it obtains evidence of a violation of the law by the association's president or any member, such as their use of the association in politics or the misuse of its financial resources outside its scope of work. Article 6, Board of Trustees continued. The Board makes an appropriate decision according to the magnitude of the error within the approval of 2/3 of its members, except in the case of impeachment or compliance withdrawal, which requires the approval of 2/3 of the original Board of Trustees first, followed by a simple majority approval from the members of the Executive Office. Article 7, Executive Office. The Executive Office consists of 25 members elected by the General Assembly through a simple majority vote, 50% plus 1 for a term of 2 years, renewable only once. The President is also elected by the General Assembly through a simple majority vote, 50% plus 1 for a term of 2 years, renewable only once. The President selects his deputy from among the members. The President of the Executive Office has the right to propose the addition of a new. Article 7, Executive Office Part 2. The Executive Council selects members and heads of the relevant committees. No member of the Executive Office, the Board of Trustees, the President, or the Vice President of either office shall receive any salary for their work in the organization. Article 8, Committees. The Executive Council is responsible for determining the number of committees through which its program will be implemented. However, there are committees that must remain in place, and the only changes should be in the personnel. These committees are the Financial Committee, the Human Resources Committee, the Study Committee, the Follow-up Committee. The committee members are chosen from among the members of the Executive Council itself, and each committee shall consist of no fewer than 3 members. Article 9, Employees. Employees are individuals who are employed within the organization to perform specific tasks. Their employment may be temporary or permanent, depending on the nature of the job and the contract signed between the association and the employee. The Executive Office is responsible for determining these individuals, their recruitment process, financial allocations, and they may not be members of the association. Article 10, Records and Reports. Each committee is required to prepare a report for each meeting held or for any work carried out, and to keep all reports in paper and electronic records, and to send copies to the President of the Association. The President is required to sign all the reports received, whether financial or otherwise, and keep them in a single record and present them when needed. Reports of the meetings of the Board of Trustees and the Executive Board must also be documented and kept as long as the association exists. Article 10, Records and Reports Part 2. All deliberations in the meetings are to be kept confidential and should not be disclosed outside the meeting room, and the same applies to written reports. Any breach of the confidentiality of the deliberations is subject to a penalty to be determined by the relevant office after verification and proof, which may result in dismissal from the duties and legal action. Article 11, Fiscal Year. The fiscal year for Hand-in-Hand Association ends on December 31st of each year. The association's financial committee is responsible for preparing tax declarations, verifying all the association's income and expenses for the concluded year, and submitting them to the relevant authorities in a timely manner. Article 12, Amendments and Revisions. These bylaws may be adopted, amended, or repealed by a 2/3 majority of the trustees and members of the Executive Bureau then in office. Such action is authorized only at a duly called and held meeting of the Board of Trustees, for which written notice of such meeting, setting forth the proposed bylaw revisions with explanations, therefore, is given in accordance with these bylaws. If any provision of these bylaws requires the vote of a larger portion of the Board than is otherwise required by law, that provision may not be altered, amended, or repealed by the greater vote. Article 13, Logo, Emblem, and the Seal of Association. The logo, emblem, and the seal are the exclusive property of the Hand-in-Hand Association. Under no circumstances may they be used outside the scope of the association's activities. Article 14, Construct. Unless the context otherwise requires, the general provisions, rules of construction, and definitions contained in the Nonprofit Corporation Act, as amended from time to time, shall govern the construction of these bylaws. Without limiting the generality of the foregoing, the masculine gender includes the feminine and neuter. The singular number includes the plural, and the plural number includes the singular, and the term person includes the organization as well as the natural person. If any competent court of law shall deem any portion of these bylaws invalid or inoperative, then so far as is reasonable and possible, the remainder of these bylaws shall be considered valid and operative, and effect shall be given to the intent manifested by the portion deemed invalid or inoperative. Article 15, Translation. This constitution must be available in both the Arabic and English languages. The original version in Arabic must be translated into English by a specialized translator proficient in both languages to ensure there are no discrepancies between the two versions. From the Drafting Committee dated August 12, 2023.